We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some trade talk around a few Canadian teams, including the Edmonton Oilers, Vancouver Canucks, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, as well as the Pittsburgh Penguins. Plus, we have some UFA chatter around guys like Victor Oloffson and Jack Roslovic. Big news out of Detroit. They're going to be retiring another jersey this year, and it's a longtime legendary player. We actually have a couple of signings regarding some PTOs today. Team USA has announced its roster for the orientation camp leading into the Olympics. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We'll kick things off with an update that we discussed here on the channel earlier. There is a dedicated video on this, so I'm not going to spend quite as much time on it. But Team USA has confirmed it's invited 44 players to their Olympic orientation camp taking place here ahead of the NHL season. They've invited 4 goaltenders, 16 defensemen, and 22 forwards. Certainly a few notable omissions that I'm sure some fans and fan bases are going to be upset about, but at the end of the day, they do have lots of great players here to pick from. They've invited even more players than the Canadians did. When Canada announced their orientation camp roster, it was not quite as large as this group, so this just means there's more to pick from, and they'll probably have a few more cuts, but obviously they wanted to get some players involved here for the experience as well. Going through the roster here quickly, in goal there's 4 goalies, Joey Dufour from Seattle, Connor Hellebuck from Winnipeg, Jake Ottinger of the Dallas Stars, and Jeremy Swayman from Boston. Notable omission, I would have to mention Thatcher Demko. The fact that Dufour got the invite over Demko is interesting. Not to say that Dufour isn't a good goalie, and nice to see him getting recognized. But Demko certainly has a longer pedigree in the NHL doing things at a higher level. So that is interesting. Clearly concerns over his injury to his knee and where his health is going to be and if he can be relied upon for sure. 16 NHL defensemen have been invited to this camp. Of course, they'll likely end up taking most likely 8. I believe they'll have expanded rosters to be able to carry 8 defensemen over to Italy with them. But this is an alphabetical order here as Brock Faber, Adam Fox, Noah Hannafin, Luke and Quinn Hughes, Seth Jones, Jackson Lacombe, almost said Justin there, Jackson Lacombe from Anaheim. He was a little bit of a surprise. Charlie McAvoy from Boston, Ryan McDonough, Brett Pesce, Neil Pionk, Jake Sanderson, Brady Shea, Jacob Slavin, Alex Vlasic, and Zach Werenski. Now, of course, we have some of these guys that were on the team last time for the Four Nations tournament. We know McAvoy will be on the team. We know Quinn Hughes will be on the team. They have guaranteed spots. They were named as part of the original 6 players that were named back earlier in the summer. But we know, obviously, Werenski. We know that Brock Faber, Adam Fox. We know Jake Sanderson. They all had, and Jacob Slavin, all had experience here with Team USA at the Four Nations. I don't know that they're going to go in a different direction here. Kind of difficult to say. I would think that they all probably have the edge to make the team, but we'll see what happens. The main notable omission here for Team USA is Habs defenseman Lane Hudson. From what I can tell online and social media today, the Habs fan base is not taking to this too well. I know some of which is surprising to many, even non-Habs fans. Were a little bit surprised. I mean, not to say that it doesn't, regardless of what you think of Lane Hudson. I know some are higher on him than other people. He did have a great rookie season. My personal opinion is he's a great offensive defenseman. He is obviously very small in stature, and to me doesn't really defend the greatest. Like the defense part of his game is the main area that's going to have to grow, and I expect that will. I mean, he is still very young and new to the NHL, so it's not like you expect him to be a tremendous defender right from the get-go. It's quite common to be something that has to work on and develop over time. But, if you're going to invite guys like Jackson Lacombe and Alex Vlasic, and no disrespect to them, they're young, up-and-coming defensemen as well, but they haven't accomplished anything like Hudson has. It's kind of interesting to see that they got the invite and he didn't. You think at the very least, even if they don't think he's going to make the team, because you got to think Lacombe and Vlasic are in the same boat, that it'd be a good experience for him nonetheless, right? But interesting choice. We will say that for sure. Let me know what you think in the comments. The forward group, as I mentioned, 22 players deep, so many of these guys will be cut. I imagine they'll likely end up carrying about 14, so you're looking at about 8 guys not getting the call to go to Italy here. But in alphabetical order, we have Matt Boldy, Cole Caulfield, Logan Cooley, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Connor Garland, Jake Gensel, Jack Hughes, so that completes the trio of brothers. Patrick Kane, Clayton Keller, Matthew Nye, so he's a young up-and-coming player here, just like some of these other guys. But, of course, Nye is somebody who doesn't have quite as much experience, so that's nice to see him get the recognition for sure. He had a great year in Toronto last year. Chris Kreider, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, JT Miller, Frank Nazar, Brock Nelson, Shane Pinto, Jason Robertson, Brian Rust, Tage Thompson, Brady Tkachuk, Vincent Trocheck, and Alex Tuck. A notable omission due to injury only is Matthew Tkachuk. Of course, Matthew has already been named as one of the first 6 players. They did name 4 forwards, including Matthew and Brady Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, and Jack Eichel, all confirmed to be already have roster spots on this team. I would say a couple other notable names on the forward group that were not invited would be Alex DeBrincat and Brock Besser. You could make an argument that those guys would be just as good as a few of the other forwards that were invited, but clearly USA Hockey had different ideas. So that's the full roster. If you want a little bit more analysis, a little bit more opinion on some of the picks, check out the other video that I posted earlier. I had more time than I spent going over all of that. We do have some other news to talk about here today, including some signings on a couple of PTOs, and then some rumors around some actual full contracts that should be coming soon here as well. The Columbus Blue Jackets have signed veteran defenseman Brendan Smith to a PTO. So we know Brendan Smith's been a bit of a journeyman D-man, bounced around quite a bit. Obviously, at this point, has struggled to land a full solid contract, so he'll go to the Jackets training camp here on a PTO. And the surprise one, the big surprise here, is the St. Louis Blues have signed Milan Lucic to a PTO. That one I did not see coming. I honestly assumed Lucic was likely done. The last time we saw Lucic was a while back with the Boston Bruins after signing a one-year deal there. He had a reunion with his original team, and by halfway point of the season, of course, he ran into some off-ice things and ended up, I believe the Bruins suspended him, if I'm not mistaken, and of course, he had a legal court issue that he had to deal with, and basically spent the last year, of my understanding, kind of getting his life back in order. I believe he went through some player assistance programs, some rehab and whatnot, and it seems to be in a much better place. I know from a family perspective, his wife has been posting a lot on social media and everything, so I know from that point of view and that part of their life seems to be in a lot better place, which is good. Obviously, it's been a while since he's played a meaningful hockey game, so I was a little surprised to see this, but obviously the St. Louis Blues figured that it was worth giving him a shot here as potentially getting a fourth line, maybe league minimum contract or something. So we'll see how things play out in St. Louis. A couple of other UFA rumors. We got Jack Roslovic, of course, who's arguably the top player out there without a contract. We had heard a lot about the Vancouver Canucks being a highly interested party, maybe one of the more likely landing spots throughout the earlier part of the offseason. It's been a little bit quieter lately. Now, Canucks media are suggesting that their interest has indeed cooled, that the Canucks are still very much interested in maybe a player like Roslovic or somebody who they feel can really help solidify that middle six or especially the second line as a centerman. Ideally, if Hedl can be healthy and play on the third line, that would make the team even deeper and stronger. And they are more so at this point exploring to find that player via trade. So right now, it seems like they kind of backed off of Roslovic. There is some saying as well that the door has not completely closed on him returning to his former club with the Carolina Hurricanes. So apparently that is still a possibility. Not sure exactly what the odds are, but it is still a chance. And we had heard as well Roslovic did have some ties to Toronto. I'm not sure where their interest still stands. We know when it comes to signing somebody like Roslovic that they've been trying to move players like Kampf and Yarncroke and maybe even Nick Robertson, even though he's signed now. Those three players are the main names kind of brought up in the rumor mill for being cost-cutting measures so they could do other things, and while they haven't been able to do any of that. So I don't know if he's still kind of holding out, waiting for them or what have you, but he's definitely a top UFA to watch, and some interest is kind of changed. So we'll see where things goes on that front. We also got a big announcement today in Detroit. And as much as I've been critical of their offseason, some of the moves they've made, more specifically the Travis Hamonic signing, not real a big fan of the Yzer plan and what he's been doing. I really don't know that the Red Wings are really any better of a team. But one thing that they did get right this offseason was making the announcement that they're sending number 91 to the rafters to be honored and to basically solidify his spot in history. So Sergei Fedorov, longtime legendary Red Wing, of course, was a fourth-round pick in 1989. One of the top Russian players, was a huge part of that Red Wings run. Of course, they won 3 Stanley Cups, and just an absolutely dominant, highly skilled player. Sergei Fedorov ended up completing 13 seasons with the Detroit Red Wings. His number will be retired January the 12th versus the Carolina Hurricanes. So he's 55 years of age now. Obviously been out of the NHL for a while. Of course, like I said, he won 3 Stanley Cups over 13 years with Detroit. Also played a few years between the Anaheim Ducks, a couple of years with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and a brief stint with the Washington Capitals. He then went on to play 3 years over in Russia in the KHL before retiring from the playing time. Of course, he has been a coach in the KHL for quite some time since then. So clearly Fedorov still very much involved in the game of hockey, now in a different capacity. But during his days as a player, he was really fun to watch, absolutely magical, and it's great to see the Red Wings here do the right thing and get number 91 to the rafters. So that will be a fun evening to watch, midway point of the season on January the 12th. Now, another name to watch as well here when it comes to free agency, which we could get this announcement as early as tomorrow, is Victor Oloffson. Now, Victor Oloffson last played with Vegas, is at this point unsigned, but according to Puckpedia, who has a source on this one, that he is expected to be signing a 1-year deal, probably a $1 million range, as early as tomorrow. We'll see if this gets confirmed and announced. The belief is that he has had multiple options that he's been weighing over, and the most likely landing spot for Victor Oloffson, it appears to be like he's likely heading to be a member of the Colorado Avalanche. Now, Oloffson, so far, I know I've seen some stuff on social media. It looks as though he's been training over in Sweden with his former Buffalo Sabres teammate Linus Ullmark. There's been some video clips shown of those two doing some drills and things together over in Sweden. So Oloffson's a player that clearly has a shooting ability. At one point early in his career with the Sabres, he was mainly racking up goals on the power play. But outside of having a good shot, there was a lot of other aspects of his game that kind of had some deficiencies, and coaches weren't thrilled with, which is why he's kind of eventually had his role shrunk down in Buffalo, and has now kind of found himself, he's barely 30 years old, with a tough time finding a solid contract with any kind of term to it. So Oloffson could be a good fit with the Avalanche. We'll see. Obviously, like I said, last year played in Vegas, had a limited role there, but this should be a low-risk, potentially high-reward scenario here for Colorado. Now, another young prospect to watch as well, maybe Bruins former first-round pick Fabian Lysell. There is some suggestions from the Edmonton Journal that the Edmonton Oilers and the Boston Bruins have had some discussions around the Oilers acquiring Lysell from the Boston Bruins, of course, who was a first-round pick in 2021. Last year, it seems like his numbers in the minors kind of took a step back, where the year before he kind of peaked at I think it was over 50 points. Things were trending in the right direction. I know a lot of people thought maybe last season, 24-25 might be the year that he maybe break through and get more opportunity with the Bruins, and maybe even solidify a full-time spot, and that did not come to be. He's played limited amount of times in games with the Bruins at the NHL level, and said his AHL numbers even took a step back last year as well. So there's been some kind of chatter about, is it time for him to maybe, after 4 years, to maybe have a fresh start, try a different organization, some different coaching, different teammates, and see what things play out. We know the Edmonton Oilers are certainly a team that's looking to get younger and faster. We know that they've started that process by, of course, brought in Ike Howard from Tampa. We know that they're expected to have Matt Savoy and likely trying to grab a full-time spot this year as well. I don't know if Lysell makes a ton of sense for them. It's hard to imagine exactly where he's going to fit in their lineup, but I can see where, in the right scenario, if he gets to play with some highly skilled players, then maybe he would have a better shot at being successful. I mean, he's not overly big. He's 5'11", 180, so he's probably, I guess you could say a little bit below average size-wise. But, he was drafted with a decent amount of skill and certainly looked like he had an opportunity to be, I don't know if anybody really kind of pegged him as being a first-line player, but definitely like a, potential top 6 or top 9 winger for sure. And at this point, things kind of have stalled with his progression and his development. I don't know what kind of asking price the Bruins would be looking for if they do move him. I've seen some Bruins fans commenting on this on social media saying that they would need to get back a guy like Savoy. Well, that's not going to happen. Even a guy like Podkolzin is not somebody they're likely going to offer here. I don't know. It probably would end up being a lower level prospect or a future draft picks or something. I mean, the Oilers are not really going to want to subtract here. If they do it, I'm not 100% convinced that they move forward. Lysell, to me, is just not at a point in his career where he's a sure bet to jump into an NHL roster and be impactful right away. So, I mean, if they do it, they're not going to do it with that expectation. So we will see where things go. For Lysell to get a fresh start somewhere wouldn't be shocking. I just don't know if Edmonton is the most likely, best possible scenario, but we'll see where it goes. It does have some degree of kind of makes sense to it, but not entirely sold that it's going to happen. Another kind of thing to look for as well, of course, we know the Maple Leafs are a team, as I mentioned earlier, when it came to Jack Roslovic and their interest there. They've been trying to move players like Jarnkrok, Croak, Kampf, to some degree Robertson. Robertson may end up staying now that he's signed a contract that came close to going through arbitration, but thankfully they were able to avoid things there right before they got to that point. But a name that I've seen surface as being a winger that the Leafs should be going after and does make some sense, and I've mentioned this before, is Brian Rust out of Pittsburgh. Of course, just got invited to the U.S. orientation Olympic camp here, and, He knows how to score, he knows how to play with top players, and he knows how to win, and he's got a great resume. Not overly old, not overly making a ton of money. With the loss of Mitch Marner in Toronto, I mean, he's not the same kind of player as Marner, but I think he could be a great winger to add to that top 6, especially with the Matthews line, to maybe be a good complementary piece to Matthews and Matthew Nyes, to make that line a heck of a lot stronger rather than place a guy like Matias Maccelli there, who they signed as a reclamation project out of Utah. I mean, a couple of years back, he was racking up a lot of assists and seems to be have the potential to be a good playmaking winger, which is basically what they lost in Marner, but nowhere near that same level, of course. But, ultimately, to me, Rust, I think, would be a big upgrade. I really do. I did see a trade proposal where maybe the Penguins, with all the cap flexibility they have and the familiarity of Dubas, maybe he would take a couple of players that he's familiar with, like a David Kampf and a Nick Robertson, for example. They'd probably have to throw in 2 or 3 future draft picks, maybe even a first rounder, or maybe you have to give up a guy like an Easton Cowan. I'm not sure, but if you got to make it worth his while, if you're going to take Rust from him and make him take Kampf going back, you're going to have to throw in some other things that he's going to want longer term. So obviously, a guy like Robertson and, like I said, maybe a first round pick or a couple of mid rounders, something. You're going to have to throw some future assets in there that Dubas and the Penguins actually would like and think make them better longer term as well. I do think there'll be a great market for Brian Rust if the Leafs want to get in on that. I think that they're going to have to, they're going to have some stiff competition, basically. I don't know that the Penguins are going to be in a hurry to move Rust. I think they know if they wait a little bit that it could up his value, especially if he starts the season semi-strong like he normally would. Though things will open up. There's going to be contending teams that aren't scoring enough and to see that they have a missing piece, and he could turn out to be the answer to their question. So wouldn't be shocking here if Dubas kind of holds on to him a little bit, trying to extract as much value as possible, which could cause problems for the Leafs. For the Leafs, they want to move some of these players before the season starts to get more flexibility so they can add a guy like him or somebody else that's comparable. And, well, at this rate, if the Penguins decide to hold off and start the year, then that doesn't help Toronto, and it could help somebody else. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, Russ will be a hot commodity going in to the NHL season if he's not dealt before the season starts. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.